The first guy we have to talk about is Josh Giddey. That's the headline. He was the leader of the Boomers team across the Paris Olympics. We talked about him extensively across the Podium Pod in July, in August. We talked about his great strengths as a playmaker. We talked about his shortcomings. He had an interesting season last year for the Oklahoma City Thunder. He was inevitably traded from the Thunder to the Chicago Bulls. He averaged a little over 12 points, 6 rebounds, nearly 5 assists a game in about 25 minutes. Joins the Chicago Bulls team that does not have aspirations of a championship like his Oklahoma City Thunder team once did. He joins Zach LaVine. He joins Nikola Vucevic. He joins Kobe White. He joins a returning Lonzo Ball as well. Mark, what do you expect from Josh Giddey in this season now that he's been traded, now that he is more of a focal point of a team that isn't vying for a championship, that is rebuilding?
Yeah, I think if I had any Josh Giddey stock still, I'd sell it all.
Right. We've started hot.
We've
started really hot.
And for me, I wouldn't be holding any Josh Giddey stock anymore. I think that there's such a difference between the FIBA game and the NBA game. And while Josh Giddey fits for the FIBA game, his skill set does not fit for the NBA game. And it's really difficult to try to correlate. You just saw a guy play, quote unquote, well in the Olympics stats wise. You could say he shot the ball well in the Olympics from the stats, but his game in the NBA, it doesn't translate to a lead ball handler, because to be a lead ball handler in the NBA at this time and point, you have to be able to shoot the ball off the dribble. And he simply can't do that. And his mechanics don't support it. He doesn't do it within his game. I think last year he shot 15 shots off the dribble from 3. He only shot 1 off the pick and roll from 3 last year off the dribble. And if you want to be a lead ball handler for a team, if you can't shoot off the dribble, there is no upside. There's no ceiling like this. And tack on top of that, he's not an elite athlete. 6'8" in FIBA at the point guard is special. 6'8" at the point guard in the NBA is a little above average. And especially if you're not an out-of-the-box athlete, you don't shoot off the dribble. Where's the upside? What are we doing here? What do you do that's special that nobody else does? And there isn't a big flashing sign that says this is going to be unique about you.
It's really hard to come back from that, because that's it's a really strong position to have. I understand why you have it, absolutely. I want to talk about how he could possibly succeed with the skill set that he has first, and then I want to talk about the areas that he maybe needs to either look at or where he is, who he is at this point. You talk about athleticism, you talk about 3-point shooting. The word that is used for point guards who can't shoot and point guards who aren't quick is usually the word crafty. I feel like that's the word that's used to describe those guys and their point of difference and their ability to be able to influence a game.
Yeah.
Is Josh Giddey crafty enough, and could his craftiness potentially give him some avenue to success?
Yeah, I think it's always sure, that's a great point. Crafty is a very nice vague term that can be thrown out when you can't point to shooting and you can't point to explosive athleticism. You can really slide crafty in there, and
basketball IQ is another one.
That can also work as well. That's a nice pixie dust one that you can sprinkle in that nobody can define. So with Giddey, it comes down to, I was looking at this as we were talking about it, and one thing that, if you can't shoot and you're not explosive, one thing defenses can do is they can play off of you. And so you'll see a lot of Giddey drives into traffic. If you've watched Giddey, if you're Australian, you've watched Giddey, you've watched drive left into traffic, floater with right hand. And that's the classic go-to Giddey when there's no spacing, but I'm bigger than everybody, and I've always been bigger than everybody, and I can always get to this shot, but now I'm looking at people that are my equals. So one thing I looked at with Giddey, because that's the shot you see so much, is over the course of his career in the NBA, over 3 seasons, over 6,000 minutes, and time as primarily a playmaker, point guard before SGA was there. Like he ran the show at times, and then times playing backup point guard against, guys 6 through 10 on the roster, so not starters, and then playing off of a explosive high level point guard on the wing with like good spacing. Giddey's only averaged 1 free throw per 17 minutes. Not a set of free throws, not a pair of free throws, just one single free throw. So you're talking about over the course of 34 minutes, starter minutes for a game, he shoots 2 free throws. Not makes, just shoots. For an NBA lead guard, for a point guard, you can't do that. That's impossible. I looked up a random starting point guard this year, Keontae George from the Utah Jazz. Yeah. Rookie point guard last year, played 2,000 minutes. He averaged 1 free throw per 9 minutes. This is a guy who doesn't even understand the league yet.
Nearly half.
Yeah, he's not a good shooter, but he's willing to shoot off the dribble. Like he shot the same percentage that Giddey shot from 3, but he was willing to take threes off the dribble. So the defense is different. So yes, I don't know. I can't see how Giddey succeeds if he's not willing to become a shooter. And willing to become a shooter means like you can see that things aren't going well, in the way that you shoot the ball, and you're willing to like actually get in and have the self-awareness to say, I need to strip this down to the studs and figure this out. Because if you can't do that and you're not an explosive athlete, there isn't really a path to becoming a starting player in the NBA.
Well, we can see in the next clip what happens when you know that a guy's not a shooter, and therefore you can kind of gamble a little bit, and you also know that he only has a limited finishing repertoire. And as we see here, what Josh Giddey chooses to do with the coverages that he's presented with, as you say, there's the left-handed dribble in with the right-handed floater.
If you play Josh Giddey as if he is a good shooter, and when I say that, like by you going over pick and rolls or you playing closer to him, if you play him as if he's an average or above average NBA shooter, he's going to be really, really good. Like he's incredible with an advantage going downhill. His size plays into a factor. He's a really good rebounder and then pushing it. If he gets in transition, he's good. Like he's got good qualities. But the thing is that if you choose to play him as what he is, which is not a good shooter, then it becomes incredibly difficult for him to get in the paint. It becomes incredibly difficult for him to finish when he doesn't have an advantage. And then his game deteriorates so much. So it really comes down to the fact of, if Josh Giddey is played as if he is an average or above average shooter, he will be really good in the NBA. But there's no reason to play him as that. So when teams decide like we're going to give him shot after shot after shot, it crumbles and falls apart. But what you can see in the clips and what you can see when you watch Giddey is that he is a jump shot away. And he's not a jump shot away in like, oh, go shoot some reps and try it out and be there. But like his thing has to be stripped down to the studs to figure out like how he can transfer power better within a shot. The mechanics just aren't there to support shooting from 25 feet away. And that's what the NBA is. Speed plus distance equals accuracy when it comes to shooting. Like it moves so fast and it's from much further away than the FIBA line. And so like it's not something where you can be ready to do this without being locked in on I can transfer power from my hips to the basketball.
You're a shooting coach, so I can ask you about this, and I can also probably go off on a slight tangent that's going to make your eyes light up, which is we've seen the power of changing your shot across an off season. Mikal Bridges is the example I'd like to offer to you. That example hasn't really worked all that well, and I think we know what good shooting looks like, and we know what it doesn't look like. Like there's a fluidity and form and balance and motion that lends itself well to good shooting. But what is stopping NBA players from recognizing that their shot is potentially broken, in your view? Working with these guys, being around the league, being around professionals, is it that they sort of rest on their laurels and say, I've got enough talent to get through, so I'm not going to do that work. I'm going to focus on something else? Or is it that they believe that if they just keep practicing the same motion that they can get it right? Shaw Marion had a terrible shot base and, execution. He basically shot from his heart, but he made enough threes in his career to justify you sort of going out on him every now and again.
Yeah, I think it's probably a mix of a lot of things put together. I don't think there's like one specific thing, but I think something that always has to be, kept in mind when you're talking about these guys is that they have made it to the absolute peak of basketball. The best of the best, they are one of them, and they've done it playing a specific way. And so, when they get to that place, like their game has gotten them there. The way that they play the game, the way that they shoot the ball, the way that they do those things. So, to think that when they hit a little roadblock, that it's something because of them that they need to change isn't the first thought. Like the first thought is like, I need to get caught up to the game where my game can actually start to show. I need to start to show my game. And then if you hit a year 2 roadblock, then you have to be able to look inside and say like, oh man, I got to do something. Like I got to be self-aware of what's going on. And that's probably the hardest one that guys don't get to. It's not easy to go and be self-aware and to say like, oh man, this is really a problem with me. The thing with NBA guys when it comes to shooting though is like normally what we're talking about here, Giddey is talented enough. Giddey is crafty enough. Giddey has enough IQ. Giddey has enough finishing. He has enough passing skill. He has enough vision. He has all that to play in the NBA because when you see guys go over screens, he lights it up. When you see guys play up on him, he lights it up. The thing is he doesn't have enough shooting in order to change the geometry where his actual skills can show. And for him to get to that place to understand I have to do something different to be able to rip it down to the studs. A, that's difficult to get to the place to do that. And then B, it's really difficult to trust somebody to do that.
You have to be incredibly self-aware, but also you're right. It's about the coach or coaches that you're working with and trusting that they're doing everything they can in the very best interests of your career. And that must be difficult to do when there's probably a million guys that, say that they are what you are, in that they're a shot doctor or a shot coach that don't necessarily have the same application and understanding and methodology.
Everybody's in your ear. Everybody's got the thing for you. And it's probably very, very like I couldn't imagine being an NBA guy and being in that spot and having so many people tell you, do this, do this, do this, do that. And so I think it gets easier to trust yourself. Like it's easier to push that away, trust yourself. So finding somebody that like you actually trust to rip it down to the studs that you've seen, they can build it back up. Like I think that's probably step number 2, because like step number 1 is you got to realize yourself
admitting you have a problem.
Yeah, and then but you see it with so many guys in the league, and when I watch like guys crash out of the league, it's not because like they don't have enough game or they're not talented enough. It's most likely because the shooting has caused the math that they always saw when it came to the defense, like the angles that they were always able to get to, like those angles tighten up when you get to the NBA because all the athletes get better. Everything is faster. Everything is closed up quicker. All the stuff that you were able to bully your way through before or blow up angles or not be as crisp on reads, that all goes out the window. Only like 5 guys, Giannis, LeBron, those type of guys, it still remains if they can blow up angles. But guys like Giddey, he is incredibly talented. He is good enough to play in the NBA. He is good enough to be really, really good if he can get the angles, if he can get the math, if he can get the spacing all back to the way he played when he was younger and people didn't say, you know what, you can't shoot it. We're not coming out on you.
It's as easy as that. Just fix the shot and everything else will take care of itself.